Hey, team players, and welcome back. We're going to be starting off here with a question for all you guys who are watching us on replay, as well as the ones picking up live immediately. Have you ever been so drunk that you needed to do wind sprints and nothing was going to hold you back from doing it? That's what we're starting here today. Obviously, we'll be breaking down all of the fallout from week 5, getting ready for week 6. This is an awesome day in the land, guys. Let's make it happen.
Why did you lead with that? That's
because I had this giant fight the other day. And yes, I know there was a ton of blowouts and there was a ton of great things in the fantasy world, people turning back on Jamar Chase, etc. But I had this big fight that said, "Oh, he was just drunk. It was not his system." And my argument, you have never been so drunk that you had to do wind sprints, that not even pepper spray or 3 knives in the chest were going to slow you down. That guy was on coke at minimum. I had like literally an hour conversation about this yesterday.
That's wild. Oh, wait.
Did you guys hear that?
I'd like to start with Mark Sanchez. Did everybody hear that news?
That is Sanchez. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That was his argument, that he was drunk.
Wild. That's wild. I mean, like, I remember going to Star Lake with you, Joe, and then having to go out the side of the window while driving down the highway. I think that was my low point.
That's what drunk people do. They don't feel like sprinting.
They're not sprinting, that's for sure. So let's kick it off with a couple of questions here. I see everybody in the chat. You put
Joshua. Bob, I had this technical problem last week when I came in later. Are you able to see Joshua's DD?
Yeah, I can see his for sure.
All right,
yeah.
So Joshua started us off with a DD. We're going to go some quick hits there. And CC, when we get to him, I really like your use of emoji, CC. Got to give you some love for there. And love to everyone out there who's using the quick hitter and deep dive system, guys. Love it across the board. Love all of you guys are great team players. Yeah. And let's dive into this, Bob.
So I'd like to kind of do this. The reason I'm starting with CC's quick hit here and then going to move really quickly into Josh's deep dive is because they both connect with Judkins. We talked a lot about Quinshon Judkins last week, and when I was out with my son on Sunday morning, and while we were eating lunch, we were watching the game, and I texted Joe. I was like, "Judkins is a beast. He's amazing." And the fact is that right now, Quinshon Judkins is attached to a defense that, injuries withstanding, health being a main kind of factor, is playing really good football right now. They might not be winning a lot of games, but this defense is keeping games close enough where the mistakes of the quarterback aren't going to be catastrophic enough to ever take Quinshon Judkins out of the game. So what I would want to think about before I'm moving on from Quinshon Judkins is I'm thinking, is the return worth it when we look at the Cleveland Browns schedule moving forward? Right. So this is kind of a connection with your question, CC, and with Josh's. That's why I'm going in a little bit more of a deep dive against it. When I look at the schedule coming up ahead for the Browns, I see Steelers, I see Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, Ravens, Raiders, Niners, Titans. There is
2 games with hard defensive fronts, and that's it.
There is no reason in my mind that I would want to take on any other player right now in a deal for Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins is a hold for me. And when you look at why, you look at the reasonings why this, Baltimore, Tennessee, Cincinnati Giants, Miami are the 5 teams that let up the most fantasy points per game to running backs. When we look at rush attempts, the Jets, Cincinnati, Washington, Baltimore, Tennessee are in the top 5 of rush attempts giving up. We already know that the Browns are going to run the ball because they have trepidation with their quarterback position.
Game script requires them to. He might be the most in line player for game script.
And when I look at your team here, CC, I don't see a reason why I want Scary Terry other than name. He's not doing anything. They're not performing at an adequate level. Maybe you get that remaining touchdown upside that he might have, but he's still dealing with an injury. And although I do love Derrick Henry and the name, and people were like, "Oh, it's absurd. You should absolutely do it." I don't think you do it.
Yeah, Bob, you're 100% right. This is the thing where people can get burnt, and you can also exploit this vulnerability in people. This is selling names to buy talent. And the reality is that's what you should do. But when you don't have a talent, when you have the talent, rather, you don't sell it for names. I'm sure we're going to have a ton of conversation about Puka later on. Same thing's going to be true there. And Puka's here in the deep dive. So we got May, BTJ, Mac, and Puka, Judkins, Hampton. By the way, Hampton's getting a second review today. We need some tighter information on his injury. Could be tight, could be ugly. McBride, Dowdle. We got Warren on the bench, Ridley, Henderson, Golden. Bill looked really good this week. So the question here is Judkins, Mac, Warren, McBride, our interest of mine is only Rice. Would you rather keep Judkins and give up a tight end or Mac?
Yes. So this is what I'm doing.
Hard.
This is what I'm doing. When I look at this, I'm using one of those tight ends and I'm asking for Rice and maybe something back. Whatever tight end that you feel season long has better upside. I mean, right now the Colts are. Yeah,
I would want those to keep Warren, I think,
that are scoring a lot of points right now. And we have to really assess if that's going to continue to be the trend. It doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. But McBride,
I know that's crazy, but I think I'd rather have Warren over McBride.
And I don't see that as being a problem. So if you're in the chat and you want to leave Josh a comment here, you can. But I'm on the way here, Josh, where I am trading McBride and I'm asking for potentially Rice and something else back. And I don't want to engage in this evening out of stuff and to move forward. With the way your team is, I don't think you can move Judkins. And just like I said, Judkins should not be moved off your team unless it's for like a guy like Gibbs or Bijan Robinson, something like that, plus pieces and all that stuff, right? On the Judkins side for Bijan.
Josh, I think the ultimate thing to recommend for your team here is if you do need to balance it out, a running back should be the second piece. Because when I look at your team here, that's your vulnerability right now. With Hampton and Rico Dowdle slotted in to be your starter if Hampton goes out, you got a lot of risk with Henderson and Mark. Now, Bill can be solid. I have a lot of mixed feeling with Bill that I'm sure we're going to tease out over the course of this episode, but I would want to have a running back that is in that tier 2. Like if we could go through that guy's roster, if he has Rice and like Jacobs, for instance.
No. So here's the thing. Jacobs is not tier 2. He's tier 1. He's a tier 1 style of player in the top tier of tier 2. What you're going to have to target if you want a running back, because this guy clearly believes in the name value of Derrick Henry right now instead of the play that's happening. And
those are two different trades.
No, it says offer Derrick Henry and Rice for Judkins, T-Mac, and Warren. And that trade is you're giving up too much. Those three players right now are playing way miles ahead of where Derrick Henry is at this moment in time.
Yeah, pick up King Henry is not the answer.
And so for me, if I want Rice and I want to give up T-Mac and Warren or T-Mac and McBride, I'd be asking for a piece back in that kind of middle range of running back. Maybe
King Henry kind of is now.
Yeah, but it's not who I want. I'm not going to give up Judkins to get there.
Okay? You're not giving up Judkins at all.
So if I just wanted Rice,
T-Mac for Rice and Henry is a fair trade, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, if I just wanted Rice, I would say, okay, I'm going to start with McBride, and I'll trade you McBride for Rice. Do you want to do it? And there's a very real likelihood that he'll say no, but at the same point in time, there's not a likelihood that you have to do a trade.
No,
I don't
your
think
team's
it's
fire.
a necessity that you have to do a trade because your rookies will turn your team around. Ridley had a great game. He's going to have games that are up and down. We know this going into this season. And Dowdle is going to have at least 2 more good weeks. I mean, they play.
He just needs to hold your flex position down until CeeDee Lamb gets back. I mean,
yeah, and I think you'll be fine. But from my example that I just stated, the next 2 games for the Panthers are the Cowboys and the Jets. In order to keep the ball out of Dak Prescott's hands, they're going to have to run the ball. If Dowdle's still playing, Dowdle's going to get a lot of work. And they're going to want to keep the ball out of Justin Fields' hands. So he's going to get a lot of work. Then you have the Saints on November 9th. If Chuba's still dealing with some injuries, you have a stellar lineup already. So I don't think you need to do it, but I do think you should get Rice, but if the cost is right. And garbage time touchdowns.
Me too, on, baby. Garbage time chase. Garbage time still counts.
So, guys, we see all the comments in the chat. We appreciate everything. We are just going to go down the line. We answer all questions here at Local Football Flavor. So if we don't get to your question right away, feel free to sit tight with us. Feel free to check in later during the replay. We answer every question. How do you guys view Diggs rest of the season? Seems like he's settling in as a solid number one for me. I like it. So when you look at Diggs, he was
really good last night.
He was up. So from week 1 to week 2, he was a drop for most people. And most people probably were making decisions on who they wanted to keep for these guys that were popping off from the waiver wire. And so people might have made the decision to move on from Diggs. If you made that decision to move on from Diggs and you were in a shallow league, maybe that was a mistake. If you're in a deeper league, big mistake. Because what we're seeing now is a player that after they got all those pieces sorted out, so from week 1, week 2, seemed like Diggs was still in that recovery phase, right? Mm-hmm. Now he's back into a mode where he's being utilized. He's being heavily targeted. And the guys that were originally being targeted aren't getting to that point as much right now. We saw Diggs with how many targets he had yesterday? I know he had like 10 catches yesterday, which was insanity.
So, and Amar, so I want to hit upon this point here because –
and it was in a game script that was close.
You literally are quoting everything Bob and I were talking about during that game last night. Jamar's garbage time still counts for real points. Vrabel giving, rewarding the fumbler with no yardage but the touchdown is nuts. And there's one other point I want to make on Diggs as we jump to the next one here with CC's amazing emojis, is that I think I'd rather have Diggs than Ladd right now. And I think I'm feeling that way for the rest of the season. And they were like 6 rounds apart in the draft.
That's wild.
So Diggs is a sneaky buy for me, guys. And I want to throw that out there.
Well, we told you last right. We did tell you last week. If you go back, Joe, and watch the end of the one of the episodes last week, we did say that Diggs would be a guy that we would want to get right now. And he came out and had a good game. It's not to say that he's going to continue to having great games, but I think 7 targets for him a week is not out of the range of possibilities.
That's
and
right.
You might look at that yardage total and say like 100 yards. Well, he could go back and have 32 yards on 5 targets as well. It all depends on how he's utilized, but the targets I think are pretty safe. And I think that he'll stabilize somewhere in that 7 category with upwards momentum as we saw this past week. So that's definitely something worth investing in my book. Now, in regards to Ertz, yes, Ertz is droppable.
Totally droppable.
We talked about Ertz a couple weeks ago and we said, like you could hold him, but he wasn't really like a buy if you wanted to. But there are so many younger tight ends. A guy that we talked about a lot during the offseason that I really liked, Mason Taylor, is one of those guys that is getting a lot of targets right now that I would definitely want to continue to buy into because the offense is such a mismatch of pieces. Also,
at the end of the day, Ertz is at best one of the 20 to 32 waiver wire quality guys.
He's not startable.
He's not startable.
If you have a piece, if you have a piece that you need to go out and get on the waiver wire this week, you need to go get that piece, and you can drop Zach Ertz. Vrabel is a clown.
No way around
I don't want to catch it. I don't want to catch a case against Mike Vrabel here, because the guy could probably beat me up. But
that ain't a problem. He can.
The problem is you have a talent in Trevion Henderson, and you give him the rock after a couple of times, but you don't reward the guy with any touchdowns. You just had Ramondre Stevenson fumble for the 3rd time this season. You had one of your other running backs tear his ACL. And you still don't give him the amount of work that he deserves. This is like when I was talking with you yesterday, Joe, about the Eagles coaches giving Saquon Barkley 6 rushing attempts in a game against Denver's defense where he could totally wore them to shreds, and they ended up losing that game. Coaches deserve it.
At least he caught that deep bomb for you there. All right, so in your Gridiron League, you sat Chase Brown. Chase Brown's damn near a cut at this point. And had Bijan on a bye, so you started Woody and Rico. Crush it. Love it. Are you concerned about Woody?
No,
I am.
This is what I said last week. This is what I said to you last week.
Chubb looks good.
Well, this is what I said last week to you guys. when we were talking about Woody Marks and Joe, was all up in Woody Marks' business. What I
never
said
thought
was
Chubb would be back.
what I said was that those numbers were buoyed by touchdowns and volume in a game script where they were able to continue to run the ball and they were doing it
You
well.
don't get a better running back game script than yesterday's. Baltimore was out at the first quarter.
Right. And the thing is that the projection was assumed to go that would go to Marks because Chubb would be dead in the water. I don't think Woody is dead, but I also do think that when you have these split backfield situations where it could be a 60-40, 40-60, 70-30 kind of thing, that you do have to kind of piece that together and say, okay, well, if Woody were to get 30% of the carries in a game script that would give running backs 25 total carries, can he do enough on those 30% of those carries as he could if he were to get the 70%? Yeah. And the thing that you have to ask yourself is that, is that going forward, is that something that you want to invest in, knowing that he's not a surefire start every week, but knowing that he can break out and have a great game. So that's not to say he can't do it. Am I worried? I'm not worried, but I am thinking more about Woody as we look at Houston's schedule going forward. And this is for any question out there.
And staying those expectations. So CC, I'll put this as one last thought on here because again, I'm slowing us up today. I apologize for that. I said last week about El Clown Man in the Patriots uniform that maybe he was saving Henderson for the later in the year. The thing is, Houston doesn't have that luxury. Houston doesn't have that good of an offensive line, especially compared to New England. And last week, there was someone trying to trade Woody Marks on like every single one of his comments and questions. And that might have been the peak of Woody. What changed it for me was Chubb turning on. Because if Chubb is on, if Chubb's even quarter of the way on, he's the best running back on that team. He might be the best running back in that state. So when I look at it overall,
Javante's in that state. So.
I know that. That's how good Chubb is. If Chubb gets back to being Chubb, he's one of the 3 best pure runners in the league. And then, so Woody won't be able to fight. I don't know if he's
back to being Chubb.
He looked really, really good. CC, we see your other one here, and here's the mark from Wumbo.
So, insofar as you asked here, Wumbo, about Diggs, when we look at Diggs, he didn't seem hampered by his leg. He was stretching it out. May seem to trust him. And you're right. When we look at the targets and the routes run, he had 30 snaps out of a possible 60 snaps that were on the offense between Drake May. Okay. So Drake May was on the field 60 times. Stephon Diggs was on the field 30 times, and he ran 23 routes. Okay. When you look at Booty, for example, though, Kayshon Boutte was at 37 snaps, but only ran 22 routes. Mm-hmm. So it seems that, and then Matt Collins was on the field more, but ran less routes. So what I look at
is Matt Collins on special teams. He gets things thrown
What
off.
I see is a player that is going to be capable of helping this team no matter how many snaps that he gets on the field. We want that snap count to go up to at least 45 or 55, 60%.
I don't worry about that with Diggs. He's old enough that he can take his plays off. But Wumbo, you're completely right. When May was getting sacked and got that ball to Diggs, there's a chemistry there that really hasn't been established in New England for a while. We're looking like Gronk time.
So before we go to that,
I was going to finish on Wumbo, but yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, when you get 2 stinkers like Diggs had it in the first 2 weeks of the season, it's like they're not like stinkers, but the second game and the third game are like, and then 4 and 5 comes out. People are going to be like, oh, is this going to be what we have in the future? Again, he could revert back to 50 yards, and there's going to be games above 100 yards. So just expect that to be within his realm of outcomes. When you look at, and last thought here on Diggs for CeCe here, looked like the skull Diggs last night, pure savage play. It's nice to see him back. Again, like I told you guys a couple weeks back, that he was one of my favorite wide receivers, even going back a couple years back. This week, Brees versus Denver. or Judkins versus.
Dude, I'm going
Steelers.
Judkins all day on that one. That to me, that's not even a close decision. The Steelers, all but one game, has had their defensive line blown back like the Ravens, and we saw how Houston was able to carve that up.
So the only
for everything
thing
Bob said in the beginning, Judkins will be game script in this. And also my tiebreaker is you never invest in a Jet, but I'm all in on Judkins.
Yeah, I would find a way to get both of these guys into the lineup. I don't feel that I feel like Judkins is the better play.
No, I think it's like close.
But I do like Breece against Denver. Again, you saw what Saquon Barkley could do if they gave him more reps. They're going to give Breece Hall that similar.
There's also a reason they stopped giving him reps, Bob. And it's not just because they wanted to force it AJ Brown, even though they clearly did want to force it AJ Brown.
I think Breece is in for a good game this week as well. Jason, won in all 3 leagues, 5-0, 3-2, 3-2.
That's what I'm talking about.
Fire, love to see it. Jason, I have a tight end issue. Ertz gave me 0 points. Ertz is gone. Is it worth trading a position player like Jaylen Warren for Kelsey or Kincaid, Pitts or Kraft, or just keep streaming tight ends? Jason,
how deep is your team? If Warren is a flex player for you, you can't move him. But if
here's some players to pick up. You're dropping Ertz. If Theo Johnson's on your waiver wire, like I told you guys a couple weeks ago, and in the offseason, Theo Johnson.
You were big on Theo in the offseason.
What'd you say?
You were big on Theo in the offseason.
Theo Johnson's a guy to pick up. You saw Malik Neighbors get hurt. And again, when we look at target shares and we think about where will the ball be going in this offense, it's very clear that Jackson Dart, and again, when we look at rookie quarterbacks and we look at other, players as well, this happened to Jane Daniels last year with Zach Ertz as well. They're going to rely when they can't see the field or they don't have proper vision and whatnot to see where their tight ends are. I mean, that's this thing that happens almost every single season. So when I look at this and I say, what tight end would I want to go after? I don't need to go after and buy up on Kincaid's big game because we know that Kincaid's not going to always have 100 yards. He could have 4 catches for 48 yards. That's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And when we look at Theo Johnson was on the field for 60 out of the 73 snaps Jackson Dart was there, and he got a route on 35 of them. That was the second highest on the team. Now, again, 1 week sample size, not great in order to move forward, but that's enough for me to say Ertz is gone and I'm going to go after a guy like Theo Johnson, and I don't have to trade for these other guys because these other guys are going to cost you a lot. And you don't want to pay that price right now, especially with Jaylen Warren potentially coming back in a couple of weeks.
That's right.
99% in all but one. I need Worthy to have a wide receiver 1 game. I'm down 2, and it's my Worthy versus his Mahomes. I heard Worthy might be hurt, so he might not play. So I hope he does because I need some help too. Would you trade Pollard for Swift, or it doesn't really matter since both are similar? I wouldn't. I'd
keep Pollard. They are both similar, but I'd keep Pollard.
I don't think both are similar at all.
And Jason, in those types of players, and I would rather, instead of trading 2 B- or lower for each other, I'd rather pair the B- with a B+ or even an A- to do a 2-for-1 to get some better value.
For everybody in the chat,
you're just trading tier above waiver wire players. Like, no one cares about your bullpen. That's how I look at this.
If you're leaving a question or comment in the chat, we do clear up all questions and comments in the chat. If you don't hear your answer right away, sit tight. We do answer all questions. If you need to go, come back. Feel free to catch us on a replay. And this catches up, Jason, to the other point of grabbing a young guy like Mason Taylor, like Strange. We knew with Juwan Johnson there would be a time. There was a question a couple weeks ago about Juwan or Zach Ertz rest of the season, and we landed on these players in no uncertain term, depending on how injuries shook down. Well, now Foster Moreau is back. Now Taysom Hill's back. Well, Taysom Hill's not really necessarily an issue. We look at this Saints game.
Yeah,
right?
Here's the bigger issue for New Orleans. They're hitting basically a 5-week gully where they're not going to put up anywhere near the amount of fantasy points. And you want to divest yourself as many Saints as possible right now.
Do you see? But here's where the issue is about a guy like Juwan Johnson, right? A Juwan Johnson was only on the field 25 times this last week. Foster Moreau was on the field for 23, Taysom Hill at 9. When you have a 3 tight end rotation, it's no longer worth investing in the tight end.
And that's the game they're going to have the most snaps on offense the entire season. So
and
everything
you could see
from
Foster
here,
Moreau doing something,
smaller,
whatnot.
Yeah, you got to get rid of Saints tight ends for sure. I think Olave and maybe Shaheed are the only 2 worth keeping.
His floor is now way lower. I'm not investing in him at all.
Yeah.
Antonio Gibson with the torn ACL, it's got to be. But I don't believe it because Vrabel's the clown.
Because everyone hates Vrabel.
We look at it and we say, you have a talent. I'm still holding Henderson. Still holding.
You're not getting rid of him.
Not starting, but still holding. Maybe this week.
I mean, the New England playoff run is cupcakes. Like, you keep them for that.
And Jason, this is something we talked about in the offseason. I was talking with Joe about players to take chances on. I can't remember what month we were in. And Joe's like, oh, I'm going to take a chance on Taysom Hill. And I said, you don't understand that Taysom Hill's 35 years old. And you were just clowning on Travis Kelce for being 35 years old. And now you're going to take Taysom Hill in the last round. That's ludicrous. The guy could potentially have a 25-point game in best ball, but you're absolutely not starting him. Like, I picked him up.
He was my quarterback insurance in case Shook up.
Yeah. Well, I picked him up this past week because I was like, oh, I have I have an injury spot that I can fill up. So I picked him up just in case he did pop off and I could trade him later. But he's not worth starting because you don't know what he's going to get. Drop Spears from the IR to keep Dowdle. I would, Ken. And here's the reason why. I think that Spears is a good enough play. If I had an extra tight end that I could drop, I'd drop them first. If I had a defense that I would want to drop, I would drop them first and make a decision later in the week when we see a couple of things with Spears. I believe Wumbo is one of those proponents where you drop a defense later in the week and you pick up some random one where you can play around with your player pool. I think you need to keep Dowdle. You absolutely need to keep
Dowdle. That portion of the debate. Ken, I need to say this one last thing about Spears, though, is that Spears is the new version of Tanks Bigsby. Everyone wants to make him a thing, and he ain't ever going to be a thing.
Yeah. And Wumbo, this is exactly what you go out, get Theo Johnson, you get Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is a volume play, though, because you're probably not going to get a lot of touchdowns there. They had one of their better games here. Mason Taylor, but here's the thing. Mason Taylor's on the field for 68 out of 81 snaps with Justin Fields. Ran a route on 45 of them. That tells you a lot about Dallas's defense in general. Play tight ends against Dallas's defense. Play tight ends against
Dallas's defense.
Okay. You can really play anybody against Dallas's defense, but you can definitely play the tight ends against both of the defense. I have a good problem here, Jason said. One of my teams is stacked where I have 3 to 4 bench guys that get 10 to 15 points each week. Is it worth it to do a 2-for-1 to upgrade somewhere else?
Yes. Absolutely. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what October is for. The 2-for-1 trades to win your championships.
Yeah, this is and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So you have Igbuka and Chase Brown for Breece Hall. Igbuka popped off, but Breece Hall still had a great game. So it was much
significant upgrade at your running back position.
It was much better than what you were dealing with at running back period before, Jesse. So while it sucks that Igbuka went off like that, these are kind of it's kind of the shit that happens whenever you do 2-for-1 trades. So, yeah, I do think the 2-for-1 trades to upgrade somewhere else are real, but you have to make sure that it's a definite upgrade to that position. So in this case, your team, Jesse, was suffering in the running back department. You went out and you got a 20-point running back. You gave up a 30-point wide receiver. You gave up a running back that put up 8 points. I think all intents and purposes that it
I'm not sure Hall would have been the one I wanted, but I'm all for that.
Alejandro.
One thing I got to say about this.
Perfect.
To quote the Chappelle Show, cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Wumbo, you grabbed Mason Taylor, Theo Johnson, and Darren Waller in case Njoku did nothing, but now I have a bunch of startable tight ends on my team, and I'm trading them away as we speak. Wumbo, that's smart. I mean, you have 4. Joe told you Njoku was going to be a good start this past week. I explained why Darren Waller was going to be a good start. Mason Taylor and Theo Johnson, they were my boys during the offseason.
Njoku's a good start against the Steelers, too. He's a good start this week as well.
Just traded Walker and Waller for Odunze to someone with Jawan Johnson. This is the type of 2-for-1 trade that it's a win-win for you. No matter what Ken Walker does, no matter what Darren Waller does going forward, you upgraded your wide receiver position to a wide receiver that's going to get touchdowns and is a veritable good part of this offense. We don't know how long Darren Waller is going to last in this position. We assume for a good chunk of the season because they don't have many other options.
Our choice, yeah.
So you're giving up that aspect, but you have other startable tight ends. So you're dealing from a position of advantage. I like it. Big Rice.
Yeah, welcome back, Rice. Hey, guys, make sure you click like and subscribe so you always come back to us Mondays, Thursdays.
Starting Dowdle over Mason probably won me my week. Hell yeah. Thoughts on Iomana versus Trey Tucker rest of the season? Might drop one to pick someone up on the waivers this week. So here's the thing I have about both of these guys.
Neither one are reliable.
Iomana went from being like the second in command in targets to not getting a lot of targets this week, but he's running the same number of routes. So I'm not super concerned about Iomana moving forward, because when we look at when Ridley was getting those results, it was in the second half of the game that they were coming back in. And who are you going to rely on? Are you going to rely on the rookie, or are you going to rely on a guy who's been with the team and is a veteran? So you kind of get a little bit of that aspect in this game. Iomana still was on the field for 48 snaps, more than any other wide receiver on the field. Okay. And he ran 36 routes, only got 4 targets. So it's kind of like running wind sprints. And you can see with the Raiders, on the other hand here, that Geno Smith didn't look good again for another game. Trey Tucker, for the same reason, was out there again, 60 snaps, 37 routes run. They're going to have games. So he was on the field over, 80% of the time as well. Both of these guys are going to have up and down games. Where I would be land at is, what quarterback do you think is going to turn it around? What quarterback do you think is going to turn around? And to see that, you're going to need to look at the schedule. So we can take a look at that a little bit later. I would be probably on Iomana over Tucker rest of the season. Woody dropped almost everybody that picked him this week. I mean, it was a bloodbath. I mean, I had him in a lot of DFS lineups. I ran 150. I had him in probably like 5% of the lineups, and it didn't turn out. It was unfortunate. But again, Woody Marks we talked about the Arizona running game as well. Emari Demercado, probably not going to see the ball a whole lot if he continues to fumble it at the goal line on an 80-yard rush. Okay.
Sure does.
But Woody Marks hasn't done anything to say.
It was 2 weeks in a row that happened with different players.
Woody Marks hasn't done anything wrong to say that he's not going to get more carries. Listen to this. This is where you need to really look at this at, right? Is that Woody Marks and Chubb basically were 50-50, okay, in terms of how many snaps they saw. Woody ran 12 routes, had 7 carries. Chubb had 11 carries, ran 9 routes, okay? So the problem is Woody was only targeted on one of the routes that he ran. A lot of that extra work went to Xavier Hutchinson, because for some reason Xavier Hutchinson saw, 3 targets, got 2 touchdowns. So you look at it and you say, all right, well, where is there an upward swing for Woody? There's room for Woody to grow here. You get it? There's room for him to grow.
I like the opposite. So Josh, for Henry Scott running back that trade before, I still think it's Henry. Yeah. I think that if you do McBride, McMillan for Rice and Henry, that's a fair trade. That's what I would do.
I think it's fair enough. Do I want Henry right now? I don't know.
I do.
Was offered Pickens and Kyron for CMC. Adrian, your squad is Hurts, CMC, Bucky, JJ, JSN, QJ, Brees, Hampton, Kelsey. The bench is McConkey, White, Downs, Franklin, and Jennings.
I think I'm doing that trade. Yeah, give me Pickens and Kyron. Yeah, I would do that.
Depending on how many you have to start each week, I don't know if I'd do it right now.
I would do it and then probably turn a second trade. I don't think I would stop there because you have too many receivers.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think you need Pickens, but I don't think Pickens is a bad get.
No, I think Pickens is a great trade piece. Pick him up, and then you can either hold on to him or move QJ and pair him up with, quite frankly, anyone. That's how I would do that. I would do that trade first because, again, I'm very much against the long term of CMC.
And
if
Smitty,
Kyron, I'm doing that.
Smitty, you're right. The game script was good, and they decided to split it evenly. I would just keep looking, and there are going to be games where it's going to be like that again.
Chubb. That's the fundamental answer. Chubb.
So Colby, when it comes to Bucky, I'm not happy, man. So the news yesterday came out that he's actually, or Saturday, I think, that he's actually dealing with a shoulder injury to boot with the foot injury, and the shoulder injury is more serious than the foot injury. This is not good, considering that we're relying on Bucky to be one of our guys moving forward. If I own Bucky like you do, Adrian, what I'd be looking to acquire is more running backs, because you have Bucky and Hampton. Last week, that was fine. You were on cloud 9 to have this 2 weeks ago. But now
you've also got White to hold him over.
You're in injury mode. So for me, I don't.
But that's all the more reason to get Pickens.
Out of CMC there.
You get Pickens and you Pickens himself or QJ can be turned into a decent back.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're going. Dustin got burned bad by Woody and Ertz. I think a lot of people in the chat who had Woody or Ertz probably did start them. Ertz throwing up the goose egg. Woody not having a good game. That was rough to see.
Ertz is rough. I'm actually surprised how many people you guys got.
Should I ask for Pickens and Jacobs? I would.
Well, I'd rather have Kyron.
I would rather have Jacobs.
I would try to get Kyron and Jacobs. If you could do that.
Kyron and Jacobs, that'd be nice. I'd have to think about what you'd have to offer. We would be able to help you out a little bit there, Adrian. But I'd like to get both of those running backs.
Even if you have to give one of your extra receivers. So if you have to do CMC and as much as it would kill me, but CMC and QJ or CMC and Ladd to get both Kyron and Jacobs, I would do that.
So Wumbo, yeah, this is the thing. A lot of people in the fantasy football circle, fantasy pros, Walter picks, all of those people did have Woody a little bit higher, but the metrics used are correct, right? That was projecting that the Houston Texans running game would be good. And it was good enough this game for Chubb to be a fantasy relevant pick. Those carries didn't go to Woody, as many people suggested. We here did not say that, 200 yards was even close to what he could be. I think that Woody right now is a situational flex guy. He's a guy that if you are struggling at running back or you're struggling in the flex, you put him in against a bad run defense and he can be successful for you. It's not going to happen every week. And you have to be willing, like we said, if you have a high floor to your offense, when you're building your lineup and you want to add a potential high ceiling guy, Woody could get you there, but his ceiling is somewhere in that 15 to 18 points. Even though he did pop off with that 28 game, a realistic ceiling would be 15 to 18 points. And I think that settles you into a flex position, but I know there's a lot of injuries going around. Would you drop Juwan for Mason Taylor? Absolutely, Colby. We went over the reasons why that's a good move. Would you try to trade Nico for Puka or stay put? I think
I'm still staying with her, Jesse. You can ask me that every single week. I will be under fire in the ball of lava holding on to Nico. Like that is, I am never getting rid of him.
The Nico for Joe is like when Frodo has the ring and won't let it go. And he's at the top of Mount Doom. And Nico could have 12 targets and 5 catches for 40 yards, and Joe will still not go in.
Nope.
Here's the problem, Jesse. I don't think you could trade Nico right now for Puka.
Puka is definitely the most impressive player of the rookie so far.
We have talked about this for many weeks now, where Puka for some people after the amazing week 1 was a sell. We told you to hold. We also said that if you wanted to trade him, you could get a couple good pieces back. Jesse, you trade him for a good piece back.
I don't think that's trading Puka for Chase.
I don't think that was a bad deal at all. Some people were talking about Chase and Justin Jefferson. I think right now, after these 5 performances that we've seen out of Puka, that it's reasonable to put him into the conversation in the same conversation as Nico, and the same conversation slightly below Puka. But I think that if he puts up another great week 6, that he's going to be in the conversation for in that same category.
At worst case scenario, he's a top 16 pick next year. At worst.
I don't want to. He's not going to. There's potential that he's not going to have that same relevancy in touchdowns moving forward. But like I told you, week 1, right? Week 1, we said, Baker likes him. Baker's going to use
Yeah,
him.
he does.
Baker likes
throwing touchdowns.
Quincy, what's up, man? 5-0. Let's freaking go. Love that. Do I drop Woody for JCM? And are we done with Henderson and Stevenson? Keep fumbling and you still put him in the game. It's upsetting. Quincy, you know our feelings about Henderson.
So a lot of Vrabel hate to start the show off, Quincy.
In your case, I would drop Woody for JCM. Now,
I would.
This is a flavor. This is a flavor of the week kind of thing because last week JCM threw up 8 yards, and last week Woody Marks did great. This week JCM did great.
Difference. There's no Nick Chubb blocking Bill. Woody got blocked by a Chubb, man, and that's not going to stop.
So what I'm looking at here from this perspective here,
their backfield is Chubb and Woody.
This is what I like about Merritt. This week he was on the field again. 59 total snaps, only saw the field 28 snaps, ran 12 routes, got 2 catches, but got 14 carries as well. So that hits that magical number of 15. That's what I want a starting running back to get. I want a starting running back to get at least 15 touches. So yes, I would drop Woody for JCM, but if I have Ertz stinking up the place, or if I have a back-end wide receiver that I'm not using, I would rather keep both running backs than dropping a running back for a running back. So if I have somebody else I can drop, that's not really paying off for me right now, I would do that, and I'd take a chance on keeping both of those guys and seeing what happens. Maddie, I don't feel confident with Worthy tonight either. Do I drop someone and start Thornton instead? I think it's reasonable that we are going to know about 15 minutes before the game if Worthy can go. If Worthy can go, again, he was seen in a walking boot, getting off the plane or something like that. If Worthy can go, I think Worthy is an interesting start, but they could absolutely use him as a decoy. But I don't think that they would want to trot out Worthy and injure him more with the injury that he's already dealing with. Yeah. So do I think Thornton is a good enough play this week? Yes. Again, if I have a second defense or if I have a wide receiver that I don't plan on starting, just to have that insurance there that at least I'll have a starting player in my lineup who's going to play games. And Thornton was a target for him when Worthy was out. I think that that's a reasonable decision to make. Is he still swollen or has there been no update? I'm actually looking for that right now.
So he'll pull that up here for you, Wumbo. So you were on Rick.
29 minutes ago, it said he's expected to play.
Well, there
1
you go,
hour ago, Sports Illustrated, 1 hour. Okay, hold on. So it says should be fine. Should be fine.
So, Ricky, you're offered J. Jeff of Minnesota, Rice, who's still suspended for a week and a half, for Amah from Detroit. I'm keeping J. Jeff and Rice. That's the side that I want. I want J. Jeff and Rice.
Yeah, when I look at
real nicely for Evans.
When I look at your team, Ricky, Amon-Ra is one of those players that probably slipped to the second round for a lot of people's drafts because people were very high on the running backs or they were very high on certain wide receivers in that same category. And Amon-Ra probably slipped into the back end of the first round, top of the second round. I think with the offer that you have on the table right now, it adds more fuel for your team. So if you are getting Jefferson and Rice,
I want Jefferson and Rice.
I think it's fair because Amon-Ra is able to put up 35 points by himself. Jefferson's able to get you into that 20 category, and you're getting the bonus of Rice. Looking at your wide receivers, there's a lot of uncertainty with Evans. There's a lot of uncertainty with DJ Moore's production. Golden has production uncertainty as well. I think you need to get the quantity here and the quality. So it's quality quantity. I definitely want to
get the best receiver in football or best receiver in football 1A.
So Mr. Wumbo said, if it's your Amon-Ra for their JJ and Rice, I'd have to buy a new phone because I'd smash accept so hard I'd break the screen.
Exactly.
Quincy, quick hit here. 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. Again, guys, if you're leaving a comment in the chat, we do get to all the questions here at Local Football Flavor.
Appreciate you guys doing the quick hit system.
Answered right away. Feel free to come back and watch us on replay. 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers in a 2-flex league. My receiver is Puka, Rice, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, Sutton, love it. My running back is CMC, Achane, Woody. Would sell high with Puka for Gibbs. Is that a good trade? Again, if I can move Emeka Egbuka for one of the best talented running backs in the NFL right now, I'd do it. even though you just heard me say everything I said about Igbuka, Igbuka's a top 10 wide receiver in the fantasy production right now. Igbuka's probably top 5 in terms of fantasy production
You get Gibbs
right now. This is Jahmyr Gibbs, a guy that we know is capable of consistently putting up
Gibbs has no consistency fears. Gibbs is the answer.
When you look at Gibbs, yeah, he's still, sharing snaps pretty evenly with David Montgomery. David Montgomery kind of just
second running back.
David Montgomery just laid on the pain. If I can start, listen to this. So if Rice is coming back and Rice comes back in some sort of capacity, and I could sell Igbuka for
Rice
Gibbs,
is going to have to be the dude. It's not some sort of capacity.
Then I have CMC, Achane as my 2 running backs that I'm going to be starting every week. Gibbs as my flex player. And then my wide receivers would be Garrett Wilson, Sutton, and I'm still looking for another wide receiver.
And Rice.
And Rice. So this kind of puts you into a very
that makes you a league winner right there.
If I could get that done
in the bottle with Puka, trade him for a league winner. Also, amazing CMC insurance.
I mean,
to me, that's a no doubt, Quincy. I'm doing that.
Both are league winners, but I mean, I would definitely go in for something.
No, that roster is what I mean was a league winning.
So Jesse, we talked about the Rams last week. The Rams were not a bad play last week, but like I said, there was a spot and they let everybody down. They got -2 points. It was terrible to see. Would you drop the defense for Chubb? Yes.
Yes.
I have the Packers defense. The Packers schedule up ahead is one that, their defense should be good with. They have the Bengals upcoming this next week.
Packers are playing Cincinnati this upcoming week. Cincinnati's going to throw a pick. That's more than enough. You don't need to have both.
Ready? Bengals, Cardinals, Steelers, Panthers, Eagles, Giants. There's only one of those games where you wouldn't want to start them.
Yeah, and at that point, you'll be streaming someone else.
Rams.
So absolutely cut the Rams defense.
I'm 1-4, 2 QB Superflex, PPR, Daniels, Purdy, Mac Jones, Gabriel, Rattler, Hendy, Monty, Rashad White, Marks, tight end Waller, Kittle, wide receivers Nico, DK, Rashee Rice, Luke McCaffrey. What trades would you make? When I look at this and I see where I'd want to upgrade. So I'm curious who you ended up on at quarterback last week. If you ended up starting Mac Jones with Joe's advice, or if you ended up starting Rattler, or if you ended up on Gabriel with Daniels coming back. Just curious about that. What I would want to do right now, Monty and Rashad White, I think are going to be fine for the foreseeable future for you at least until Bucky comes back.
Yeah.
So what I'd be looking to do is I'd be looking at Juwan Jennings' injury, but the player you're probably moving on from here, Smitty, and I hate to say it, is most likely Nico. Nico's a player that I know everybody wants to keep, but Nico will get you a return of a wide receiver and a running back to get you motivated towards the end of the season. Nico's one of those players that I do want to hold on to, but looking at the rest of your team and how packages can work out, I don't necessarily see a package that you can put together that, unless somebody else is holding on to Browning, but Browning ended up having a good enough game after all the interceptions anyway. You have enough quarterbacks. And when Purdy comes back, I see you could potentially trade Gabriel after a decent enough game this week if Brock Purdy's healthy, and see if you can work something out. But you do need to get a running back here.
When does Kittle come back?
Kittle comes back. Well, they're saying week 6 maybe.
Well, that's this week. So the guy I'm looking at moving, and the reason I asked that was Waller. Waller has a blow-up game. You have no idea if he's got enough consistency or longevity inside of him. You probably can move him at his peak or pretty close to it. Mm-hmm. Waller is a guy, maybe you pair him with Marks, maybe not. Waller is the guy that I'd want to move. I definitely do not want to move your receivers. That's the
To this note, Wumbo suggested, and I think this is a great suggestion, and we talked about it at the top of the show. If you have extra tight ends that are performing at a great clip, and somebody was just really happy to start Juwan, or you're still dealing with the Kittle injury, you can move those tight ends plus a piece to upgrade in another area. For example, right, Smitty?
I mean, you're going to go Waller for best running back you can get. I mean, that's what this trade I'm telling you is.
Waller for best running back you can get. maybe DK plus Waller for a better running back. You might. There is a framework, Smitty, where I'm not saying that that's the exact package that will get you this player, but
I
that's
don't
a
want to
package.
move a starter off his team.
This is a package that could potentially get you into a guy like Jacobs or Kyron or even Cook after the bad game Cook had this week. People are going to sour on Cook and be like, oh, well, that's going to happen.
Yeah, you trade Waller and DK off of their two biggest performances. I don't think you're getting Cook. I think that's too big of a stretch, but it's worth trying.
That's what I said. It's worth thinking about at the very minimum. Wumbo loves JCM, but just traded him and Theo Johnson for Devontae Adams where I need a wide receiver. Brilliant. Love it. Run away from that. Love it. Quincy, Kraft was on a bye, so I picked up Waller. Would you keep him and Kraft and Waller and play for week to week? I think that, like Wumbo said,
you move Waller. You get something in return for him. You got a lightning box there in your waiver pickup. Great.
Your team is so solid, and you said you're thinking about trading Puka, to get into Gibbs. See if you can add one of those tight ends in to get another wide receiver back. A JMO just had a bad week. We know he's going to have up and down weeks. Maybe you want to get into that to have some depth. Or Zay Flowers. He had a lot of targets this week, didn't really do a lot with them. Get into depth. Maybe you can do something like that with that piece. I think that that's a possibility. Adrian, is 3 starting wide receivers from the question that you had before. So having JSN, JJ, and QJ, and then putting Pickens, and then you have a flex there. Yeah, I could see myself doing that, knowing that you have to start 3 wide receivers. I could see myself doing that. I'd still have to think about it more. As good as Waller can and probably will be, selling him high right now is just too good. This is the Woody Marks phenomenon from last week where you sell Woody on a peak game. Yeah, there's a good chance that a player can replicate that peak game over and over again. But the aim of the game here is looking for a peak, but looking for consistency as well.
And right? I don't think Waller's got enough consistency, endurance in his tank.
I had to make sacrifices for my teams. I dropped Packers and Shaheed, ended up getting Slayton, Rashad White, and KC defense. I don't think that's bad, Maddie. Shaheed had a great game because he was buoyed by that 87-yard touchdown pass. We talked about that last week as well. If you thought that Shaheed was going to have a touchdown, then you absolutely wanted
to start. You don't want Saints right now, so that's okay. I would want to get the Packers back, though, because I want to play.
Yeah, I do want the Packers back if it's a possibility, because Casey's defense is just ho-hum to me right now. Jamie, what's happening, man? Good to see you back. Recon, there's a new team post. Here, guys, here's my new team. Post this BTJ trade. Jane Daniels, ETN, K9, Nico, Addison, Ingram, Ladd. Have Dak, Danny Dimes, Ridley, RJ Harvey, and Brian Robinson. Safe to say we are trending in the right direction. Yes, we are absolutely trending in the right direction. Traded BTJ for Ladd and ETN, which was such a good trade for me. Yeah,
it was.
We'll see how he performs tonight, but I think that puts you in a more solid position to be in than anything else.
Certainly does, and there's a good chance that BTJ is looking for a different employer next year, just like George Pickens did.
CC almost had Jamar, but the 2 previous offers, but moved him down to the flex this week. And I knew I had him, but garbage time screwed me. Yeah, Jamar ended up being, I think, in one of the top lineups on DFS in the 150 max for the ticket. It was really interesting to see how he climbed up. Here's the new proposal. I'm trading away Jane Daniels, K9, and Ladd for JT / Saquon plus DJ Moore. Guys,
I want JT.
We talked about touchdown equity, but here's something that I want you to kind of just pay attention to. I don't have a problem targeting Saquon, and you're paying for JT's touchdowns that he's already had, but he's had like 2 touchdowns wiped off the board because of stupidity. So,
yes, he has.
Look at it. He could potentially be sitting at 7-8 touchdowns right now, and he's not. So if you think JT can get to 16 touchdowns, you absolutely still have a lot of touchdown equity within JT. I think it's really smart to go out and get JT. Honestly, if I'm packaging,
I think Saquon's getting hurt. I haven't stopped with that belief. I don't think JT.
If I'm packaging JD, K9, and Ladd for JT, I do think that I could get a piece that might be better than DJ Moore. You guys know I like DJ Moore, but he's just not getting the usage right now. Maddie, I have Puka and JSN and Rashad White won me my week. That game was nutso. An absolute banger of a game. They look like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in that game. If Nico is Frodo with the ring, who's the Gollum that you let bite his finger off? Joe, answer that question. Who would it be?
I don't know.
Who would it be? Think about it. Come back
Maybe
to it.
Bijan.
So Recon. Oh yeah, Bijan would be it. Yeah, Bijan would be it. I think it helps you. Marty, good to see you, man. I think it's your first time here, maybe your second time. Got Roma, Buka,
Like and subscribe, baby.
Ricky, Pearsall, CMC, Henry, Kyron, Javonte, Chubb, and Bill. Who should I target in a trade? Honestly, if I'm telling the truth right now,
receivers.
I think you need a wide receiver because Ricky Pearsall, I think, is a very valuable piece, but with the injury, that's a concern for me. What I would try to do is, like I said at the top of the hour, we talked about how I'm not really interested in Henry, but there's names out there that people are interested in. Henry's one of them.
Mm-hmm. Same with CMC.
If I could trade Henry to get into a wide receiver of comparable-ish value that's getting
volume, I would do CMC for Puka.
Do that.
I would try to push that because the love of CMC is there. Puka might be a little too rich, but that's the neighborhood of conversation I want to shoot for. Go
so you
for
said
it. To a top
I was thinking about trading either Rome or Buka and Javonte or Henry for JSN. I think you're giving up too much.
You're giving up way too much.
JSN had an incredible game, but I think you're giving up a little bit too much.
Javonte is straight up for JSN, not an and.
For me, Igbuka is kind of a straight up for JSN. But when we
above JSN,
when we look at your team, if you want to move one of those running backs, Joe's absolutely right. CMC is getting a crazy amount of volume right now because all of these pieces are injured, and there's a likelihood that he gets crazy volume when they return, and it's going to be better volume.
There's a likelihood he gets injured too,
and it's going to have more touchdown equity. But when we look at how it is right now, when I see CMC, I see it as a player that people are gonna you follow the volume, right? If I can trade CMC, like Joe said, for a guy like Jeff, for a guy like Puka, I'm absolutely trying to do that because Kyron and Javonte Williams with Henry and Bill and Chuba potentially, with that injury, those guys, I think that CMC is your best piece to trade for a major upgrade at wide receiver, or even just two other wide receivers that are pieces. You might even be able to trade CMC for JSN plus something else.
Yeah, you do JSN and Pickens. I can understand that for being CMC.
You could get something like that. The Texans fullback last name is also John. Oh my God. You're kidding me. I didn't even realize that. Wait a minute. You're lying. You are lying. Oh my God. That would be so wild. That would be so wild. I can't find it right now, but I believe you. And that's insane. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody, all rise. All right. We got a deep dive here from Jesse.
Worthy
for 40 points tonight? I hope so. I
highly doubt it.
We'll get to that deep dive, Jesse. Trying to trade Kamara and Waller to the Judkins owner and hyping up the Kamara trade news. Hey, if Kamara gets traded to Kansas City, Kamara will be a good landing spot.
Sure
but we talked about a couple weeks ago about the Kansas City Chiefs not really having cap room for like Tyreek Hill. But speculation is there. They're not using him. Kendre Miller is going to be used more. I would do it. I would try to hype that up. I would try to hype it up.
Yeah, try to push it through regardless of what happens in real life.
Rattler and Daniels. I mean, Rattler did get a touchdown. Mac Jones ended up with 3 for 300 yards, which was wild. I don't think anybody was expecting 3 touchdowns from Mac Jones on
Wait.
On
Look at this trade he just did. You traded Browning for Rishi Rice.
That was in a super flex. That was in a super flex.
Still, he won that trade.
It was pretty good. Adam, welcome. I want to trade away Mason for a wide receiver. Any suggestions, or should I trade away Bowers for a wide receiver? The time to trade Mason was probably last week. Before he had a touchdown this week, which was great.
You eat his bye. So Adam, the question is, do you need the receiver this week or not? Because you're not going to get as much for Mason on his bye week. That's just the way that it is. So, I mean, quite frankly, you compare the two of them and try to get someone who's in love with name recognition and do an exploit there. because Bowers certainly has name recognition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for Bowers, so you can make a fair argument that Bowers' injury is worth the same as Harrison and his inconsistency. I don't want to. Gino looks like he just quit football yesterday, by the way. If anyone watched it, I'm not saying anyone should have watched that Raiders game.
So, Joe, what's your suggestion?
The Raiders are firmly in the quarterback market for next year. So I think Bowers is a declining asset. So getting rid of him, I'm not opposed to.
I don't think he's a declining asset. He's just hurt. He's continuing to be hurt.
I think the situation is rapidly declining around him. The Raiders'
situation is rapidly declining. The Raiders are not. They're looking at like as if they are an inconsistent team. Next week, they're in a game where Ashton Jeanty should absolutely be in another smash spot.
Dude, Raiders are going to be bad.
So I would really think about. I don't think that Bowers' production, when he comes back and he's fully healthy, I think it will go to a point where it will be useful from a fantasy perspective, but he's not. And he right now at this point in the season, there are probably 7 other tight ends that I'd want to start over Brock Bowers right now. So you look at it and you say, okay, which of these pieces could I get? You can sell the name of Brock Bowers or you can sell the production of Mason. And it really depends on
sell the name and see if you can get someone who's in trouble like AJ Brown.
Yeah, I don't really want to get AJ Brown on my team, but I can see why you would want to because the production could be there depending on how he's used in the matchups. So for me, I think, I would trade Brock Bowers. I would also trade into Brock Bowers for the right price, depending on what that price is. I'm assuming you have other pieces at tight end to be good. See what you can get for Bowers first, and then try to go in for Mason. If the people rather have Mason than Bowers, then flip the script on them. But try to see what you can get for Bowers first. Smitty, I read week 6 on Friday, and that has changed since Saturday and Sunday.
Either way, though, Smitty, what I would do is I would just then do Waller and a player, do a 2-for-1 trade, and then get a streamer for this week. And to just carry you through. You need to upgrade the core of your roster. And when Kittle comes back, Waller's basically cut anyway. So that's how I would go about that.
But going for this, Wumbo, before we get to Jesse's question here, for if you have DK Metcalf or if you have any player like Jacobs or Bijan, any player that already had a bye, you use that to your advantage when you're negotiating trades. Say, I already ate the bye week. You are getting the rest of the year's production from this player, and I have to eat a second bye week from whatever player you are giving me right now. Sell that for all it's worth when you're making trades like that, trading away a player that already had the bye week. With Hampton possibly out, would you get Vidal off waivers? I'd get Vidal or Haskins, one of the two.
Vidal's the one who got the love 2 years ago, so that'd be the one.
Yeah, I don't really have a preference at this point in time, one over the other. If we go in and we look at the carries after Omarion got hurt, and we look at the snaps, it was basically a split. So you could easily see that happening. Kamani Vidal was the rookie they drafted last year, so you could land on Vidal. But they do utilize Haskins in the red zone as well. So it's a weird situation to be in. I think it could be worth monitoring as we go through the week. But yeah, Vidal, I think, is worth picking up. Trade Mahomes to get Lamar, even with Lamar's injury. Joe really loves Lamar.
I do.
And I think that Lamar coming back from an injury is great. But I'm not trading Mahomes and his production right now, unless I have another.
I'm 100% getting Lamar. John, me and Bob are polar opposites on this. Give me Lamar and miss 2 weeks and win your league. That's a no doubt about me. Mahomes and Kansas City have a horrible playoff run for your fantasy playoffs. Lamar is caked with championships.
No. This is what I'm saying. Joe, this is what I'm saying is from the same conversational point that we just had about buying bye-week players. If you don't, whatever your second option, maybe it's Daniel Jones and you're comfortable starting Daniel Jones over Mahomes until Lamar comes back, or maybe it's Jordan Love, right? I think that if you keep Mahomes, see what he does this week, and then trade him trade him a week or two from now when Lamar's about to come back. We had a question like this last week.
Dude, you won't be able to get him from Mahomes then. Get him now, win your championship.
I think you can. Hampton placed on IR. This is terrible news, Steve, for everybody that traded for Hampton before last week. Following the numbers didn't lie.
He was there.
Omarion Hampton was a stud. The numbers didn't lie. It happens with trades. It really does suck. Kamani Vidal would be. I'd pick up both. If I had the option to pick up both, I'd tend to lean Vidal, but I would not be disappointed if I ended up just getting Haskins. Again, would they be startable this week? That's a question for Thursday. Pick one off waivers. Who are you picking up? Chase Brown, Henderson, or Pearsall?
Probably Henderson.
You have a solid team, Quincy. And if I'm looking at your team, you were just suggesting to trade Igbuka. And if I'm trading Igbuka for Gibbs.
But he also had Jennings.
Yeah, if I'm trading Igbuka for Gibbs, I could see myself. No, he didn't have Jennings.
Then Parasol is the one you should get then.
Yeah, then I would go for Parasol. If I'm keeping Igbuka, right, and I'm not doing that trade for Gibbs, then I'd go after Henderson. So either way, looking at your team, I do think it's worth picking up a couple of these guys.
Parasol and Quincy, talking it through, Parasol's the answer. So to KJ's question, Bob, I'm going to shoot the question at you first. Is Haskins the one who was on Baltimore 3 years ago? Is that the same Haskins?
I think that was Dwayne Haskins. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see.
I don't know how many people are named Haskins. I don't know. It's a common name. I don't know.
No, Dwayne Haskins was the quarterback that passed away, right? From Ohio State.
Now you're bringing up sad thoughts. I don't know. I started the show talking about the Sanchez doing cocaine and he didn't.
So Hassan Haskins in 2024 only had 34 carries. He did have a touchdown.
Was he on Baltimore?
No, he was. Did Baltimore play Houston last year? No, they played the Chargers. He was on the Chargers last year. So
Houston last year.
Yeah, it wasn't him. But again, when you look at Vidal versus Haskins, Haskins was utilized the first game. Was not utilized the first game of the season. Will he get carries? Will he get targets? I mean, Vidal is probably the pick, guys. But again, if you're gonna split it, when you go. Again, you saw this last year too when they were dealing with J.K. Dobbins and the injury and then, the whole Gus Bus experience and all this other stuff, right? You look at this and you go, they're not opposed to using either of them. But here's the point that I'm trying to make with these two guys is that Omarion Hampton was a stud. And when you have the production of a stud like that, neither of these guys are going to get the majority of the carries.
That's true. It's going to be a rotation.
When you look at the team, too, they just lost 2 offensive tackles the last 2 games. I believe they're Joe Alt and the other offensive tackle are dealing with injuries. So now you are going to have a quarterback that is most likely going to rely on passing the ball even more than they already were. So even if whether Hassan Haskins or Kamani Vidal start, I don't think you're going to get startable fantasy production out of either of them. But That's true. Do think that either of them is worth picking up because it's always good to have those extra running backs on your team. We've seen injuries happen, and it's really worth it to have. But I think Vidal's the answer. Are they worth starting? I don't think so. So KJ, for your second quick hit here, better at waiver ad. Haskins, Vidal, or Isaiah Davis?
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of went through that. It's Vidal.
Yeah, so when I go and I see Isaiah Davis, for example, you look at a player who took on 33 snaps, right? Got a couple fantasy points in there, was on the field, ran 24 routes, got 4 targets. So he does have some advantage, but here's the thing. Isaiah Davis wouldn't be startable either, but I like Isaiah Davis in case, Breece Hall were to get hurt. We know that he's the next guy up. They have nobody else. They have Khalil Herbert. They have nobody else. So it'd be Vidal, then Isaiah Davis, and Haskins. They said it wasn't that bad.
Vidal there is Vidal's already starting. And then, Jesse, for your question here of Kincaid from Buffalo or Njoku from Cleveland, I have been on Njoku the entire offseason. And my reason is their usage for them is amazing. And that was even before they went down to the rookie. Rookie shut down the tight ends a lot. We saw Njoku had a huge game with his first one against with Gabriel against a really good defense. This week, the Steelers do not stop tight ends. They really haven't stopped tight ends since Troy Polamalu retired. So I am going to go with Njoku on this. And it might just be a standing question. Any tight end that's playing the Cowboys or the Steelers just might be my answer.
But here's the other thing that I want to explain to you guys, too, is that while
they didn't even stop tight ends because Gronk ate the shit out of them all the time.
While the number for Dalton Kincaid was good from a fantasy perspective, Njoku was on the field for more snaps than Kincaid in his game. And when we look at, in general, when we look at the Bills, they have 3 tight ends.
The Bills spread it around.
That they are utilizing for various reasons on the field. Some for blocking, some for fantasy production. When we look at how this is split, though, Dawson Knox had 38 snaps, Kincaid 37, Jackson Hawes 20. And Kincaid ran a route 24 times, Dawson Knox only 16. So, when we look at the targets, he did a lot with the small targets that he was given in this game. Usually he's going to be somewhere in that 6 targets. This game, he kind of blew up with those 6 targets. He might go back to 4 and get 40 yards. I think that Njoku's the better play because there is touchdown equity upside there. And I don't think that Kincaid, while he has a yardage play, his touchdown equity is not very good.
Plus, they lean on Njoku a whole lot more.
Will the Patriots? I think this is the question of the season, at least for our show. This is the question of the season. Will Travion Henderson be unleashed soon? We thought a couple weeks ago against Carolina. Why not now?
Well, see, here's the thing. Definitely. I do think so now because now there's no choice. He's the number 2 running back. He's going to be on the field more. And the one thing we all loved about Henderson was there was only one running back come out that could have matched him in speed, and that is Tootin. Henderson in one carry can give himself fantasy relevancy. So
yeah. But
there has to be something going on behind
this. There's got to be.
I mean,
guys, if you have questions in the chat or you're just joining us, please feel free to
one
drop
day.
a question. We answer all questions
hasn't let
here.
It go. Because Vrabel is a clown. We can't forget that.
To add to Jesse's question here, I do think Waller, I do think Waller over Kincaid or over Njoku and Kincaid. I like that.
No.
And here's why. I'm going to say it. Equity, dude. Equity. When we look at the field, yes, Njoku is a great pickup.
Who else in Cleveland can catch a ball?
You're not going to be mad. But listen, you're not going to be mad picking up Njoku. Njoku is a solid play. What you want to look at, though, too, and pay attention to is Waller, and this is why Njoku is a solid play. Waller has good touchdown equity upside because there's not a lot of pieces that are catching touchdowns there, okay? When we look at Njoku, it's the same thing. We need players that are going to catch touchdowns. Rookie tight ends tend to rely on tight ends. Rookie quarterbacks tend to rely on tight ends. Listen.
There's no defenses you're afraid of. There's one out of the next 7 games.
Listen, I think Waller right now is going to cost you more fab than Njoku.
Well, definitely.
But people are not going to look at the stats to see that Njoku is on the field more. They're running more plays than Miami right now. They're moving the ball better than Miami right now. And so Njoku is a great pickup. I like both of them. If you want to prioritize Waller, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I would be accepting to get disappointed this week potentially by Waller in the touchdown upside. Because again, like I said, Waller, when he's on the field, he was only on the field for 32 out of the 55 snaps that Tua played. But he ran a route on 27 of those 32, caught 5 balls. I think that's good equity in that offense. So I don't find a problem with either of them. Wumbo, I'm 5-0, 14 team, 0.5 PPR, JD5. Wide receivers are Adams, Odunze, Diggs, and Addison. Running backs are Barkley, HN, Scadaboo, Judkins, Tootin. Tight ends are Njoku, Taylor, Johnson. Start 8, only need to be wide receiver. Need to consolidate. Any ideas? I like what you're doing right now. You're going out there. You're trading extra tight ends for wide receivers. What I would do next is I would go after a big dog. And I'd be like, okay, I've got Rome and Adams. How much more is it going to take to get to Justin Jefferson? Something like that, a consolidation, because if you're comfortable with Diggs, if you're comfortable with Addison, now again, maybe you deal Addison in that deal instead of J Jeff. If you're trying to get out,
if I were you,
CeeDee Lamb, another target as well.
I'm taking a Dunze and having him be the one I move, because I am of your three starting receivers. He's the one I'm least confident in moving forward. If you could do a Dunze, I mean, you can do this. I would do a Dunze and Saquon and go get Gibbs.
So yeah, I mean that's a good idea too. Odunze and Saquon for Gibbs, I think, is a great idea. Wumbo. Also, if you're looking for wide receivers and the guy didn't want to trade you CeeDee Lamb, I was just reading your chat there. One player to target would be looking at that top there, Puka. You have the player capital to go after Puka. You just bought into Adams, which is smart. Igbuka is a guy you have player capital to get right now. Even though
Chain's another guy you can consider moving too, because I do think the bottom's about to fall off of Miami.
But again, looking at it, and you just said here that the worst is that Judkins and Barkley both have a bye week 9. If you were to trade Barkley right now, and this is the other piece, Barkley and Adams for Bijan, maybe.
Barkley and Dunze for Bijan could be possible.
Maybe, right? Already had the bye. Say, hey, Saquon's got his bye week 9. He's ramping up. They're ramping up production. Maybe you believe in him a little bit more. But I would try to go after a Justin Jefferson. Maybe even it's skirting the reaches of my mind right now. But going after a higher.
If you're moving Barkley, you gotta get a running back.
Yeah, you do. But I'm saying wide receivers are your team needs a couple one depth wide receiver. I think to be like, I can see a scenario that the Jets trading Breece Hall to the Chargers and Isaiah Davis becoming running back 1 for the Jets. And unfortunately, I'm a diehard Jets fan saying this. KJ, that's why I'm saying Isaiah Davis has a pathway better than Kamani Vidal and Hassan Haskins right now, because that line is injured. And so even those two guys are not going to get full complement of snaps. They're going to be running behind a injured offensive line. Yes, they're going to have red zone opportunities, which Isaiah Davis might not have as many of. But Isaiah Davis is a piece that, with the Braylon Allen injury, is very interesting. Very interesting. Left a joke comment on your last stream talking about the New England running back situation. I'm still pretty sure someone has dirt on someone to have them keep saying we need to utilize Stevenson's weapons. You know what? You mentioned a couple weeks ago that you thought Ramondre Stevenson was watching the stream, and I feel like he's a sleeper agent somewhere in the stream. I know he's not watching, but
he's got a bot watching.
I feel like it because he's continuously coming back and just like getting over us all the time.
Might be you, Wumbo. We might have just called you out. It might be like that episode of Rick and Morty when the robot wanted to be found.
If they elevate a practice squad guy, and that practice squad guy gets more snaps than Trevion Henderson, I will be inconsolable.
They could pick up Montague, one of the guys you loved in the offseason, off of that practice squad and have him right now. I actually bet that's what the Chargers do. I bet the Chargers, instead of paying draft capital to go get a starter, I know your comment was about the Patriots, but I bet that's what the Chargers do. They take one of those good rookies that are in someone's practice squad and snag them.
Michael, you lost the first 2 games. It was a slow start because of a plethora of rookies on my team, but things were finally coming together, and I won 3 straight. Losing Hampton is going to kill me, though. Send us the rest of your team. We'll help you out, Michael. And this is what I'm saying, right, Joe? Picking up both the tight ends and trading one of them is a really smart idea right now. People want tight ends.
It's hard to trade someone that you picked up on the waiver wire the same week you pick them up, as a general rule.
Why not?
Well, the answer to that is because if I really wanted them that bad, I would have got them myself.
Waller for Chubb?
Oh, I would do that a second.
Why not?
But if I had Chubb, I wouldn't give him away for Waller.
But you might have just picked Chubb off the waiver wire too. You might want to go.
Like I said, if you got him last week before the blow up, it's a different conversation getting him now and then trading him tomorrow. It's not. Would I
trade something for Lamar Jackson? I have Stafford as my other quarterback. Jesse, I don't see a problem with that. Like we just talked about.
Give me Lamar all day.
Trading Mahomes into Lamar, fine. If you have Stafford, he's perfectly going to move you. You have, I believe you had Knicks as well. If you can upgrade Knicks had another good game.
Dude, you can do Knicks and Lamar. You might be able to get that done.
Constantly thinking about Knicks versus Stafford. Stafford has a very low ceiling, though. So be careful with that. Stafford has a very mid ceiling, a very lowish floor too. So I like Stafford. If I can go out and get Lamar, I think it makes your team better.
I would do Knicks for Lamar in a second.
You're trying to get your team ready for the long haul here.
I'd do that for a second.
You traded to get Pearsall and then traded Pearsall and J-Mo to get Odunze. Now trade Odunze and another to upgrade again. It's literally the trade a paperclip up for a car thing. Odunze is, and here's the thing. Odunze's value hasn't changed from last week. He had the bye week.
He's been overrated this whole time.
I would actually say that Odunze's value, like you said earlier, Wumbo, is better than it was in week 4 because you already ate the bye.
That's right.
You ate the bye. You sell him. If you can sell him in that category of J. Jeff Puka plus a piece that you have, by all means, do that. If I have Fields, would you trade Jane Daniels for Lamar? Someone send me a trade offer or just wait it out. What's the trade offer, Jesse? I'd think about it. I'd think about it at minimum. At minimum, I'd think about it. Would you trade Knicks and a piece for Jackson? Yes. I would. You know, Jesse,
I don't even know you need to give the piece. That Jackson owner has no second quarterback, and if he's desperate, Knicks could be enough to get it done.
Yeah, I think right now, Knicks, and you were asking us, Jesse.
100% I'm moving Kyler Murray to try it. Kyler Murray needs a piece, though.
You were asking us, Jesse, earlier. I'm trying to find the last deep dive that you sent here, Jesse. You were asking us about like pieces here, right? And you're looking at wide receivers. I'm definitely interested in moving Knicks. If I can move Knicks into Lamar, I'd do it. But if I can turn Knicks into a wide receiver, and most people don't like to trade quarterbacks for wide receivers, if I can do that, I'd even think about that too. Nico's on a bye. Which wide receiver would you pick off of waivers? Between Robinson, Wandale, and Trey Tucker and Xavier Legette. So let's get into this, Joe, and Matthew Golden. All right.
Wait, now, Golden's a choice?
You know I love Matthew Golden.
Choice. Golden is clear cut above Wandale, Tucker, and Legette.
Matthew Golden is in a position this week to feast.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Now, the problem is snap share. He's not getting enough snap share.
At least there's a pie that's worth eating.
The pie is there, and you could absolutely see. For example, guys, this is a DFS lineup that I'm trotting out this week in my 150 max.
You've already built it.
I haven't figured out the running backs yet, but I figured out the one quarterback that I'm building into this. I am building out Jordan Love. I am building out Romeo Doubs, and I'm putting Tucker Kraft into that build as well against Cincinnati. You just saw Sam Laporta have his best game of the season against this defense. Mm-hmm. Tucker Kraft can do that as well. Romeo Doubs can feast and eat as well. Then pairing that up on the backside with Jamar for garbage time. Chef's kiss. I think it's going to smash. This is also coming from the Sam Darnold play of Sam Darnold, Igbuka. Just missed out on A.J. Barner because I was really high on Waller and Theo Johnson this week. But when I look at this team and I see the pieces to pick up, I think that Golden is a piece that he's not going to get a lot of volume, but the volume that he does get could be elite. We saw he was basically not used for most of the game against Dallas. It was
so early in that game against Dallas, he runs the wrong route and steals a pass off of someone else. Ends up making a play. It was a really deep bomb and all that. But he definitely was put in the doghouse following that situation because he wasn't running the offense correctly. Coming off of his bye, I do suspect those problems to be cleared up, which will give him a lot more snaps. A lot more snaps, maybe a lot more routes run. And for someone this talented, it could easily eat into the Dobbs touchdowns. So Golden's the one I want. I don't think the Giants are going to score enough touchdowns to even consider Wandale.
But the problem with Wandale is never about touchdowns. It's about volume.
I know, you need 14 catches to make him, because he doesn't get yardage. He always catches everything at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, his A dot has climbed in recent games.
Fallen anymore.
One of the one of the things to be careful about here is that while Philadelphia is not great always against that number one wide receiver, who is that number one wide receiver for this team? If it's Slayton, I think that Wandale.
I don't even know number one receiver matters.
It does.
The whole game.
In terms of coverages,
they're going to get destroyed.
Just listen. In terms of coverages, it matters because when you look at the number one wide receiver facing off against Philly's defense has been scoring well almost all year.
Yes.
Okay. But when you shift that to wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, then you start to see Philly as a unit playing good against wide receiver. So if Wandale is in a position to be slated as number one in terms of that target share, he has the capability of earning it because he was on the field the whole game, and he had the most routes run out of everybody on the team. But it's because of the way Joe said that he was used. I do see a framework where he could be used similarly again, but I don't see there's the touchdown equity in the Thursday night game. So I think for that reason, even though
I see Philly being pissed off and destroying them,
even though Wandale is going to get volume, I don't think that that's going to necessarily relate to a big game. Whereas Golden could get a big game off of seven total.
Yeah, he's definitely your biggest percentage chance of doing that, Jess. And
Tucker is interesting.
There.
Tucker is interesting, but again, the Raiders are a team. We talked about Geno for the last couple of weeks now. This is a team that won't really have to pass the ball too much against the Titans. The Titans are a team that, who draws Legere, who draws Snead and all this other stuff. Doesn't really matter because you can run on them. And there's a story and a
for Kyler Murray, you can do anything on them. You
can make a story for yourself. I mean, again, we talked about the running back situation in Arizona. We said that Kyler Murray's probably going to rush for a touchdown. The running backs, it's going to be a great rushing game. You're going to see Ashton Genty probably run the ball 32 times. I mean, I know that's an exaggeration.
It might not be.
In order to win this game, he's in my DFS lineups too, by the way. In that Green Bay matchup, I think he's the smash start of the week for the price. But looking at this, Tucker and Leggett, they don't really interest me. So I'm on Wandale and Golden. I'd probably land on Golden when all things are said and done because I really don't like Thursday wide receivers that are low production kind of guys.
It doesn't matter if they're Thursday, they're low production guys. So, Bob, that's the end of that deep dive because the answer's Golden. We can't drag this out anymore. We got a lot of new questions that came in.
It's a legitimate question.
It's a legitimate question, but the answer is Golden.
JJ, right here, bud. I love this. Avoid Giants wide receivers, add Coker. We talked last week about this. Is Jalen Coker, Joe will disagree with this, but Jalen Coker is walking into a place where he could potentially get a decent amount of volume.
The guy got a lot of best balls in the offseason.
I think that Coker is a good play. I really like that. Welcome, Jesse. Is there any news on Joe Mixon getting back with the team during the bye week? Have him on the IR.
I have on IR too. I'm hoping.
I have seen no good news from Joe Mixon.
Nope, it's been no news anywhere.
The first thing that you see from all Yahoo, Pro Football Focus, everything else might be out for the rest of the year. So if Chubb is doing well and if Woody Marks is doing well, there's no reason to rush Mixon back.
You always want to nurse a good Chubb. That's just the way it is.
If you own Pollard and have Spears too, would you drop Spears for Isaiah Davis or would you drop Sean Tucker or drop DeMarcado? I'd drop Sean Tucker right now.
Yeah.
We talked last week about how he could be a drop last week. Also, DeMarcado could be a drop. What we saw from DeMarcado was...
Yeah, DeMarcado's got to get hot water.
What we thought we were going to see out of DeMarcado, we saw out of him. A guy that could potentially be explosive, but is going to have limited reps, and he's going to have to do a lot and not make a lot of mistakes. He made the biggest mistake of the game. Or the second biggest mistake of the game, potentially. Maybe it's the biggest, but there was another big mistake in that game. But you look at it and say,
I think Kyler Murray was the biggest mistake of that franchise.
You can say that I think Sean Tucker would be the drop for Isaiah Davis. If you're worried about the Bucky injury and you don't like that DeMarcado is probably going to be in the doghouse next week, then DeMarcado would be the guy that you would drop. I don't think you drop Spears for Davis. I think you should keep Spears because they did utilize him at the end of the year last year. And this offense can't look any worse. So they're probably going to use him again this year. Would I start any of those guys this week? Probably not. But I think I'd rather keep Spears than Tucker, personally. Michael, I have too many quarterbacks, but I've been trying to trade one. May, Herbert, and DJ. Daniel Jones, Genty, Hampton, Scatterboot. Nah, you're not that bad. You lost Hampton, but Genty's about to have a good game this week, most likely. Yeah. Scatterboot's about to have a hard time this week.
That's the problem with your team.
I don't think Tet's a problem, but I do think that you have a lot of pieces here that you can pair up to get a good trade done. We just saw a couple of the trades that Wumbo was pulling down the line with these tight ends.
Yeah, I would do McBride and Tet and go do an upgrade at receiver.
If you can move McBride and Tet, you can absolutely do something like that. I was thinking more something like, see what you can get for
Fannin. You can also do McBride and
Fannin and Herbert.
Scatterboot.
Fannin and Herbert, see what you can do for something, a low-end piece that gets you a little bit more depth.
I'm saying you should move McBride. Like, I'm actively promoting trading McBride.
I know.
So you want to move. You're right. You said you want to move quarterbacks. So let me go within your framework. You do McBride and either May or Daniel Jones. I'm fine with either one. You should be able to get a decent running back in return. It might get you in the Josh Jacobs. McBride and DJ might get you into Josh Jacobs, and that'd be the spot I'd start looking at. I mean, you're obviously not going to get into Gibbs, but that's where I would look. Bob, next one up.
Okay, you're killing me here, Steve. You're killing me here. So, breaking news, Tom Pelissero, 19 minutes ago. If the Eagles listed running back Saquon Barkley as a non-participant on their estimated injury report because of a knee injury.
Well, of course he doesn't. That's how I thought. He's the Thursday night game. That's just non-participant. You have to give a reason. You have to see what he is tomorrow.
Monday's
not a real thing.
So for those of you trading into Barkley, go trade into JT instead. But
yeah.
Keep your head on the swivel with that. Wumbo, it sucks when you make a lot of trades in the league because if you win that trade, that team doesn't want to trade with you anymore. And so few teams want to trade to begin with. That's the problem.
That's reality.
This is the problem. A lot of times, guys, like redraft leagues for leagues that don't trade, it's kind of just like a best ball league to a degree where you have a lineup and you basically just, the best ball part of it is that you draft and you can't make any trades and you just got to go with the players you like. But then you get the waiver aspect into it. And the thing that sucks is that sometimes there are some weeks that you might add the waiver darling of the week and he doesn't produce. You might have had Keyshawn Boutte week 1. We were lulled into a false sense of security with those targets week 1. Diggs came back and lit it up. With trades, people are salty when they lose trades, but they don't understand it. Like losing a trade in the short term, right, from week 1, doesn't necessarily mean that you necessarily lost it overall. And if you leave yourself out of making trades, it's just going to hurt you in the long term. You're all trying to make your teams better. And unless there's absolutely collusion aside, you're absolutely trying to make teams better. So when we suggest trades like May and Fannin, we're thinking, you might want to go to a guy that's dealing with a Lamar injury. He might want a quarterback, May and Fannin. He might be rolling out Juwan Johnson. That's a legitimate trade. You're not going to get like a light years better player, but it's a legitimate trade. If you offer legitimate trades, people are going to at least.
As you guys know, I'm always trying to maximize your return. But sometimes things I go a little crazy with it, but that's how
here's the thing. Here's the thing also, before we get to any of the other questions or comments in the chat, it's economics. There's a fantasy football guy. I can't remember his name right now. He's on Twitter. And he talks about the economics of fantasy football. And he talks about the fallacies that people get into after drafting certain guys. So you have the fallacy of, I drafted this guy in the second round. I can't trade him for anything less than a second round value. Yeah, well, if you have that mentality the whole way through the season, we're now week 5. It doesn't matter when that player, or week 6. It doesn't matter when that player was drafted. If they're producing, that's what matters. So if you have Chase Brown,
what it says is I have learned nothing in the last month and a half since.
Yeah, if you say I'm not willing to trade Chase Brown because I drafted him in the second round and I need to get second round value at this point in time in the season, and you could trade Chase Brown for Tony Pollard, who's producing right now at least, you're going to be mad about it because you lost out on that equity that you had in the second round. Like, for example, like I passed up a lot of great players in the second round. I was talking with Joe about this, but I had so much faith in the production that Chase Brown could get on an offense. And sometimes you're just burned by injuries. Sometimes that happens. People, with first round picks, JT a couple years ago, Chase this year and all that stuff.
Well, I go out of my way to tell you Chase Brown was going to suck the entire offseason. Every time you brought him up, I told you that.
When you look at those fallacies and you look at the economics of it, you are dealing from an economic perspective. So you have to at least get that kind of it's definitely follow the guy on TikTok if you're interested in hearing about the economics of fantasy football. It's really interesting.
The economics are
Demarcus Robinson. I'm not picking up Demarcus Robinson.
No.
So if that was Wandale, I'd pick him up. But if that's Demarcus Robinson,
but either way, it's way behind Golden, dude.
It's Golden. In a PPR league, Michael, you're 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex, 1 tight end.
Michael, you trade either Indiana Jones or you trade May. And then that's how I would have done that. You pair that with McBride, and you go out and you get a stud running back.
Will you trade any of these 2 players Jason asked for Nico? They want Terry, Sutton, Kyron, White. Good for how many more weeks? 1 or 2 for Nico. My other wide receivers are London, Ladd, Evans, and Myers. So I got some.
So you're getting Collins and trying to pair up the payment. I would, if I were you getting Collins, I would move Scary Terry and Sutton. I would not want to move one of my running backs because even though I hate Drake London and Collins is a formidable starting lineup. And with Ladd in your flex, if you get rid of one of your running backs, even if it is White.
Jason, can you put in the chat who the rest of your running backs are? If you can put in your chat who the rest of your running backs are, we can better figure out if you want to trade.
I know he has a surplus of receivers. So getting rid of Sutton and Terry for Collins, I know that plays. That's the discussion.
Yeah, Jason, he's right. I don't want to get rid of Sutton because I like his target share, but he's right.
I love Nico.
Sutton and Terry for Nico is fair enough. It will at least get the person to think.
Unless you can get Terry and Ladd to get the job done. But I like Ladd more upside than Bob does. Bob likes Sutton more. That's just you call. Either way, Scary Terry's involved in this trade.
So the running backs are Barkley, Kyron, Swift, Carter, and Rico. Yeah, I would watch that Barkley injury right now, Jason, just to see what's going on. It could be a non-issue because we know that Monday practice reports for Thursday games.
And Jason, I get why you feel that that's a big overpay, Sutton and Terry, but Collins can win you a league. His playoff run is so juicy. The Texans have already blown their leeway. They're going to have to win those games outright.
Here's the thing, Jason.
Collins is almost whatever it takes.
Looking at your team, if the guy wants Kyron and Terry, it's a fair enough trade because Terry's done nothing yet.
I'd rather get rid of Sutton.
But looking at your team, you have Barkley, Kyron, Swift, Javonte, Rico, White, and Carter. You have 6 starting running backs.
Scary and Swift would be where I would want to start that conversation.
No, that won't even be close.
That won't even be close. But if that's what he wants, he wants a running back. That's where I'm starting it.
So if I was,
it's going to take Scary and Sutton.
If
Scary and Ladd.
If the guy wants a running back and a wide receiver, don't start with Terry and don't start with Terry and Swift. That will get you laughed out of the room. You go with Sutton, who's producing Sutton, and see if you can offer one of your lower running backs first. If that doesn't work, I don't have a problem moving Kyron when I look at the rest of your team. I'd rather keep Kyron because I'd rather be trying out Barkley, Kyron, Javonte, and Rico. And that's why White is also expendable. If he wants White and I can move Sutton and White, or I can move Terry and White, I would do that first before I would move Kyron. I wouldn't move Kyron until I've exhausted all my possibilities with
of those 4, Kyron's the last one I'm moving.
I would agree with that. I would exhaust all my possibilities before I were to make that decision. KJ, what could I get for Jacoby Myers and BTJ? Want them off my team. Right now, you could get a bag of peanuts and a gift card to Marshall's. They're really not worth much right now. It's really sad to see that because Jacoby Myers is getting the targets. He's earning the targets to be fantasy relevant. We talk about target earners in fantasy football a lot. He's earning the targets to be relevant. It's just not turning into anything. And the same goes for BTJ. They're earning targets to be relevant, but they're not turning those targets into anything right now. He was a good buy low.
They traded in real life, the two of them for each other, their rest of their seasons would take off. They're mismatched parts because Jacoby will go across the middle and BTJ hates that idea. And the Raiders need someone who's just flat, fast, and tall. No, that's what Thornton is. So
yeah,
maybe that's not. But
well, I mean, that's what Tucker's pretty fast too.
They both are.
When I look at this, though, KJ, what could I get for Jacoby and BTJ? You can get assets that have potential.
Henderson is what
you can get assets. For example, KJ, you can go out and get a guy who you think that maybe when they return from IR, they'll be a good play. That's kind of like your Aaron Joneses of the world. Okay. Usage upside kind of there, but not a lot of upside in terms of the injury department. You can go after a player who's failed in multiple straight weeks to be productive if you feel like the upcoming weeks are going to maximize that player's production. It's going to cost you a lot to buy in the players that are already playing well right now.
Yeah, like you're never going to get the two of them for CD, even though he's hurt out.
I don't think you might be able to pair the two of them up for.
You might be able to get Kittle though if he's out for 2 more weeks.
If I were to trade both of these guys, you could buy into a player's production like Cortland Sutton. I think it's a big overpay. But if you can move BTJ into Sutton, I don't think that would be like a terrible deal if you're looking into a guy like that. Another player to be intrigued about.
Henry's a disappointing guy who I'd look into, King Henry.
Another player to be at least show a little bit of interest in, although you might not want to trade for him, is guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., who have not yet.
Don't do that.
Again, they've not put all those pieces yet together.
They never will. Kyler Murray's in charge of it.
You can absolutely buy guys like Jacoby Myers for Jameson Williams, a guy that's Jameson Williams not earning that level of targets every game, but can break out and have a very productive game every so often. So that's kind of like the mindset that I have. If I'm sitting there with those two guys, I'm still not really wanting to trade BTJ until I see what this week holds for him tonight. But I do think that BTJ is a piece that I would trade. And I don't see a problem with guys like K9, right? If I'm targeting a running back, K9, your Tony Pollards, players like that. Thinking about that. Jesse, which top 5 defense would you pick off the waivers this week, Joe? That's a huge question. I'll be right back.
Give me the Packers against the Bengals. There's just picks galore. Give me that. That's where I would go there. Appreciate you too, Jace. Again, guys, make sure you guys click like and subscribe. That's where I'm going here. All right, Wumbo. The owner that I traded a Dunze from has J. Jeff, London, and the number 2 running back is Hampton, who's out. And they have Pacheco at a number 3. Oh, that is dirty and gross. Who should I send as an offer who I listed earlier? Wumbo, Bob's going to need to come back to pull your team up because I don't remember your team off the top of my head. But let's see if I can find it real quick. Now that's the Adunze trade wagon. Wumbo, I love that you tell me so much stuff. Here's your roster. So you are looking to move one of these guys to try to get into in the JJF. So let's keep the Adunze train running. And you can't really move Barkley with that news, although if you could, that would be where I would go. If you can give me Adunze and Barkley and get J. Jeff, I would probably go there. Because even if this is just a Veterans Day, I still believe Barkley's out. I think that long term he is going to be out, and it's just the wear and tear of the body and the position. So I'm not opposed to that. That would be a direction that I would look at looking there for your Wumbo. But he doesn't want a Dunze back. All right, so he doesn't want a Dunze back. So go with Diggs then. Would be where I would go. Although you could do this because you probably don't want both Vikings. If you do Addison and Barkley, that could equal JJ. That way you're not trading a Dunze back to him.
Honestly, though, take whatever one of those wide receivers you like the least out of that grouping. Pair him up with one of the wide receivers that you're kind of mid on, that you're not sure what you're feeling, and go after Jefferson or Lennon. I think Jefferson's the target for me. And maybe that's Addison and Adams. Maybe that's Adams and Diggs. Maybe that's Odunze.
Well, no, the problem is he needs a running back because his number 2 running back was Hampton in his third. Okay. So, that's the leverage point. That's what I'm saying, Barkley in all these trades.
Yeah, Barkley's a good leverage point for you. I know you like Scadaboo Wumbo. He's getting the volume. Last week was a little bit of a disappointing performance fantasy-wise. But like an Odunze and Scadaboo plus one of the tight ends, sure. I mean, I'm not really that spooked with
not McCarthy with JJ. I'm scared of Addison, but not with JJ.
I'm not really scared with Addison either. I think that they're both going to get usage. McCarthy.
I also don't think McCarthy's coming back this week.
But again, Carson Wentz,
really good.
Cam Akers threw a touchdown last week. So, if Cam Akers can throw a touchdown, I'm thinking JJ McCarthy after a couple weeks off can throw a touchdown too. If Barkley is out, would you pick up Tank Bigsby?
Bigsby's always a thing. Bigsby's always a thing.
I would prioritize Will Shipley before Tank Bigsby, but they did go out and
definitely the one you should get first.
They did go out and get Bigsby. They did go out and get Bigsby, so I don't see it as a problem.
Got actually, Bigsby's the answer because they already had Shipley and they felt the need to get Bigsby. So go get Bigsby.
If Packers aren't available, what other defenses do you like this week, Joe?
I'm a big board list for you here, Jesse. All
right.
So I like the Patriots defense this week. I love the Eagles defense this week. Even though they're on the road.
I know Seattle's probably not going to be available, but I like Seattle.
That Steelers game's going to have 4 points scored in it. So Steelers, Cleveland.
I like the Browns on that side. Browns are probably already on a team. Yeah, I mean,
despite the fact that numbers say I can't in good conscience recommend Vegas, but the numbers do say it should be.
Yeah, I think the Commanders-Bears game is going to be a high-scoring game. That's a wild one.
Yeah. All right, send out a few offers and see what happens. But but answer your question overall, I am not worried about McCarthy and JJ. And the primary reason is he's one of the best coaches of football. He knows how to get JJ the ball. So JJ, I think, is probably the safest receiver in football when it's all said and done.
So that's the thing. So with JJ being on bye, right, is that you're again already eating that bye week. So
you're able to pay less for it. I would do Saquon and Addison. That's how I would do to try to get.
I don't think that's unfair. I don't think it's an unfair offer. I think it's a lot to start with, but it's not an unfair offer, and it won't get laughed at.
I'd start with A-Chain and be willing to accept Barkley.
With the Barkley injury, people are going to be a little bit scared. So you might not want to do that conversation today with Barkley. You might want to start that conversation on Tuesday, depending on how you're.
Barkley, you have to get it done on Tuesday to get the thing through.
Who can I trade Hurts for? My lineup is QB from Dom here. QB Hurts. Running backs are JCM, running back 2 Swift, wide receivers 1 are Tet, wide receiver 2 is Debo, the flex is Henderson, the flex 2 is Jawan Jennings. Who else do I pair up?
So basically the question is you're moving Hurts to upgrade a position.
And I'm assuming guys like Jordan Love are still on the waiver wire in your league.
So it's fine.
Go out and pick one of those guys up. If I was upgrading any of these positions,
it'd be RB2.
It's your RB2 and
wide receiver 1.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, what's happening, man?
You're in a 20-man league. This is pretty rough.
So what I'm looking at, well, it's not rough insofar as definitely Hurts. You probably lost a couple of guys due to injuries is what
that's right. You probably had Lamb on this roster and maybe Bucky. So, okay, I get it.
Yeah. So what do I do? If I'm trading Jalen Hurts in a 1 quarterback league with other quarterbacks like Jordan Love available, I'm probably not expecting to get back more than a really good startable RB2 from the tier right below Jacobs and Cook. So, you're looking at potentially getting back a top 15 running back, or you're looking to get back like a top 15 wide receiver and maybe a top.
Yeah, Dom, if you're looking at Hurts, I'm looking at Javonte Williams.
I think that's fair. He's being super productive right now.
Yeah.
People might not believe that that he's capable of holding that up over the entirety of the season. I know people believe a lot more in Josh Jacobs. When we look at the schedule moving forward for guys like Javonte Williams, they're going to be Panthers, Commanders, Broncos, Cardinals, all teams to take advantage of. Raiders, another team to take advantage of. Then you got the Eagles November 23rd, and then Chiefs. Surprisingly, you can take advantage of them. The Lions, and then the Vikings, and we saw Judkins take advantage of them. So a guy that I would target for you right now is absolutely Javonte Williams. Joe, that was good advice. I wasn't even thinking about that, but Javonte Williams is a guy I target. Now, you got to keep your eye on Jadon Blue with the injury to Miles Sanders, see how that works out. But I think that if you were to go out and trade Hurts for Javonte and getting something else back, I think you can absolutely do something like that. Yeah, Wumbo, we got that news from Steve. Tom Pellisario just tweeted that about 20 minutes ago. Dealing with general soreness, expects to play Thursday, but we've heard
veteran days off on a Monday.
We've heard this before. We've heard this before. So, Dom, feel free. We're about to go off air in a couple minutes, but feel free to leave a comment on this video and with some trade targets that you're hoping to get and maybe the rest of your team, so we can build something out, and then you can join us again on Thursday and we can talk a little bit more about it.
Like we just got to get his team through some injuries.
Gainwell a good pickup?
I do not think Gainwell was a good pickup at all. So Gainwell was basically used to the extent because Warren was a very, very late scratch, and also they knew they had the bye coming up. So given the fact that those two things are not going to be the case, Gainwell is not someone I want to pick up.
He's not a pickup for me. Wumbo says, I've been trading for people on buys in this league since I'm 5-0, and I can afford to lose a few games. Yeah, and that's a fair way of going about it.
I'm doing the same thing at 4-1.
Is McManus a decent kicker for this week? Somebody called out Schrader. I think it was you, Nick, last week, and then Schrader goes and hurts himself. Any other recommendations? So, you typically speaking, when we look at schedules and we see, we want to target teams that we don't believe are going to put it in the end zone, but are going to be capable of moving the ball. We also want to get good game environments where the games potentially are close, where they're going to want to or need to kick field goals in these games. I think that right now, you could target, even though he let a lot of people down this week, you could target the Titans kicker. The Raiders are not a great team to kind of, you're going to be able to move the ball against the Raiders, regardless of what kind of offense that you have. And he let some people down. So I think that it's not terrible to target the Tennessee kicker. It's not a priority for me. I also think that Pinheiro, right? We talked to Pinheiro was on somebody's list last week of startable kickers. I like Chase McLaughlin a little bit better, but Pinheiro had a fantastic game. And there's no reason to say that against the Buccaneers that he won't have another one. With the Hurricanes coming through though, on the East Coast and the weather potentially having a role in this week's games, I would really look at kickers probably closer to like Friday, Saturday to see what the weather is going to be in some of these East Coast games, because I do think there's a hurricane coming through. If I'm not mistaken, let me check on that.
Yeah, it happens every year in the beginning of October. Of course, it's coming. It's every year. So I had to drop Bill to pick up Mason as Bowers went down. I'm kicking myself as he's going to explode the rest of the season. I'm going to try and get him back, but I think he's gone now. Yeah, dude, that sucks. Bill's a dude. Bill's been a dude I've been targeting ever since Robinson got traded.
He might be gone. He might be gone, but I think you got a good talent in Mason Taylor too. So I'm not going to be
tight end is never worth as much as a running back.
I get it. JCM is absolutely going to be worth it. So I think the Hurricane might be kicking in on Thursday and Friday and not Saturday and Sunday. So that's good news for kickers on the East Coast. What defense am I starting in week 6? Rams totally let me down. Nick, we did say that the Rams would be a good enough play, and they were not good enough because of the second reason we said, where it could be a weird game where the Rams end up losing, and was what it was. I think the Steelers aren't a bad defense.
I think it's a smack start. Cleveland's coming off of London with no bye. They never do that to a team for a reason because it's a disaster. Plus, let's face it, Steelers are coming off their bye.
The Pats,
it's a rookie quarterback.
And here's the thing.
Wins these wins.
Last week, I talked to you a little bit about why the Giants could have been a good play, and the Giants ended up losing points as well, or only got 1 point as well, because Spencer Rattler got touchdowns, and the team in totality, there was a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and it totally blew everybody out of the water.
And also, here's another fun fact. The Cleveland Browns, since they have been reinstated, have never won in Pittsburgh. It's the longest streak in the league.
That went from his knee is messed up. Who do we pick up to replace him to? My knee hurts a little. Yeah, I mean, it's wild.
And your team name's going to be on, I'm on my knees at Kittle.
I'm ready for Etienne to put up a stinker and get hurt, and Hunter to go for over 100 yards. So people says he's so back. If Hunter goes off for 100 yards, guys, people are going to say he's so back, and they're going to, if you're holding Hunter, it would be the perfect time to trade him. All right, guys, we're gonna bounce off right now.
Pick 6 tonight, guys.
If you have any questions between now and Thursday, please leave them on this video. We'll be sure to either answer them via message or via the chat on the video,
as well as our secret bonus question for all you replayers. Have you ever been so drunk that you had to do wind sprints?
We will be back Thursday at 3:45 to answer all your questions and your comments. Nick, before we go off the air, you're welcome, Jesse. You're welcome, Wumbo. Does Kelsey score 12 points tonight? I'm leading in my matchup by 11.9. The only way Kelsey's
going to be on 2 touchdowns.
The only chance he scores 12 points is if he's thinking about Taylor Swift's song "Wood" and scores a touchdown. That's the only way that it happens. Cocaine legs, baby. Cocaine legs. Is that the new nickname for the Sanchez? That's going to be a wild nickname. Going to love that. You're welcome, everybody. See you on Thursday.
Have these legs down, man.
3:45.